everyone, and welcome to the Growth Genesis podcast. We're your hosts, Dan and Paul.
What's up, folks?
And today's episode, we're going to be covering some significant failures that we've made in our entrepreneurial journey and how we overcame. And it's going to be a good episode, so stay tuned. It's going to be a slightly short one, but nevertheless, got to pump these out and be consistent, like we talked about last episode. So, yeah, without further ado, um, let's get started. So,
Yeah.
um, let's start with you, Paul. So, let's let's reflect on a significant failure, or just any failure that you've had in your entrepreneurial career so far, in these beginning stages.
Well, um, that's just a little bit tricky because the biggest one that immediately pops to mind, I'm not entirely sure if it was necessarily a complete failure on my part, but I'll share it anyway. Back in 2019, shortly after starting my business, I was doing some social media content and some marketing for a company, and I'd been doing stuff for them every week, and it was cool. They were a hemp farm. They were growing, I think, about 1,500 acres of hemp,
Wow.
and yeah, they were growing it and then processing it, and they would like sell the CBD oils to places so that you could buy them for, it was like health remedies and stuff like that, and they used it for a whole bunch of things, which is really cool. And the hemp industry was pretty big at that point in time, and I thought, oh, that's cool. So after a few months of doing work for them, I had this idea, and I was like, I should make a documentary, like, on the industry itself, but also like the role that these guys specifically are playing in it, because they're like the methods that they were using when it came to, like watering it and like growing the stuff, was different than a lot of the rest of the industry. And so I got a hold of the guy who was the head of their marketing department, and and I was like, hey, I have this idea. We should meet up sometime and talk about it. And he goes, well, I'm in Texas, but I'm gonna be up there in Colorado in like a week or so. Let's meet. And I was like, all right, cool. So he flies up and we meet in person. And I had kind of put together a little mini like pitch document, on this documentary, and I pitched it to him. And he was like, yeah, this is absolutely fantastic. Love this idea. Just from where we're sitting right now, we can give you a budget of around six figures.
Jeez.
Um, and you can hire people, you can rent out stuff, whatever. And by the end, like when all is said and done, like buy whatever you need, rent whatever you need, all that sort of stuff. And by the time that everything is done, whatever is left of the budget, you can take home. And I was like, dope. That sounds fantastic. So I started working on the project. Um, Started doing a lot of R&D, a lot of pre-production, and I got a few months into pre-production, while also at the same time doing just the regular weekly content for them that I had been doing up till that point. So I got a few months into pre-production, and then I kind of got ghosted a little bit. Um, and it turns out, like, I don't know exactly what went down, but something went down with like the leadership of the company, and there something had gone south, and some other company was wanting to come in and buy out, and There was this whole thing. So I was still doing work for them, and I stopped getting paid. Um, they had, I think, 8 invoices that I had sent them that they hadn't paid, and it took them like 8 months because they literally just like restructured the company from the ground up,
Wow.
apparently. But uh, eventually, I think it took them like 6 to 8 months or something
Jeez.
crazy. But they did end up actually paying everything in full, um, with the outstanding invoices. The project never went anywhere, which was a bum because I had some really good stuff done with R&D. But I think probably one of the failures that I made in doing that was, I think, maybe overpromising what the project could have been. Um, because while I had everything kind of mapped out in terms of like stuff that could be rented, people that could be hired, um, and things like that, I was looking back at it now, I was a noob. Like
Mm-hmm.
I was a newbie, um, and and really probably should have dialed back not only my expectations of what the project could have been, but also how I pitched it. Um, because the way I was pitching it, it was big. It was big, and it really was like a big project. But the way that I was pitching it, um, made it, I think, seem a little bigger than it would have turned out to be. And when I was pitching it, I honestly thought that the way I was pitching it was how it was going to turn out. But like looking back at it now, I'm like, oh yeah, no, it would not have turned out. It would not have turned out the way I pitched it. Um, and so honestly, I think probably the failure in that instance was looking at the situation, looking at the project, and going, okay, what can I realistically pull off, even with $100,000 budget? Um, what kind of stuff can I pull off realistically here, and then pitch based on that. That's probably like, I don't know 100% if the fault is on me because the company literally got like completely restructured and the project got dropped at which didn't have anything to do with me. But um, it just kind of feels like, looking back at it now, I approached pretty much the whole thing incorrectly. So like if we're talking like big single mistakes, that would definitely be that. In terms of like maybe smaller mistakes that compounded and added up, not charging enough. I think everyone makes this mistake when they start out in freelancing, or they start their own business. They're like, oh, I need people to buy, and people don't want to pay high prices. So if I price lower than everybody else, um, people will buy more.
Yeah.
When that doesn't, that's not how that works.
No, and
And I thought that was how that worked for forever, like
yeah,
literally years. And I was like, why am I never actually like making any money?
yeah.
Because I would do jobs, I'd get paid, um, and I'd be like, oh yay, and then I would set aside for like taxes. Like I would pay the business expenses, set aside for taxes, and by the time I was done with all that, I would have enough money left to go and buy a burger and a beer at Remington's with my friends.
Yeah.
Remington's is a, for those of you listening that don't know, Remington's is a restaurant that's in a golf club in Montrose, Colorado. It's a very nice place, good food.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go on Tuesdays, you can get a burger and a beer for around $10.
That's actually pretty good. Pretty good
Yeah,
deal.
yeah, it is. It is a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
Um, and so like I'd have enough money left to do that, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
Because I was in this mindset of, oh, I gotta price low.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta I gotta come in under budget for whatever the people are looking for. So I was doing crazy amounts of work for far less than minimum wage when you do the math. And I made that little, quote unquote, little mistake over and over and over and over and over again until it turned into a massive mistake. And I feel like that, in combination with not knowing how important it is to learn to market and sell, like those things in combo, I think is why I have only made like maybe 30 grand in my entire business in the last 6 years.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But that's what it's all about is learning and whatnot. And I think, but back to what you were saying about, trying to price lower is like something that a lot of people believe. Like, well, if I get low prices, then people want to buy. But the truth of it is, like,
If you have
also,
low prices, then people don't see much value in what you're selling.
yeah, and also it's just like from a business standpoint, considering like other large businesses like Walmart, Target, whatnot, with low prices and stuff, that's what the big corporations do.
Yeah.
Is stuff like that. You don't want to have a race to the bottom and
Mm-hmm.
get such because like you don't have it like Walmart and Target have such a massive like enterprise and stuff and amount of people who will actually go and buy regardless of how things are priced that they can
Yep.
afford to go lower and make that their competitive edge. But you as like a person, like if you're doing e-commerce or whatever and you're just selling stuff at like AliExpress level, like you don't have a big enough enterprise to almost probably not even break even
Yep.
considering if you're spending money on ads and whatnot.
Here, come buy a Rolex for $1.42. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like yeah, why make your profit margins 5 cents? It just doesn't make sense. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
pun intended, but um,
It literally does not make sense,
yeah,
let alone dollars. It gets bad.
we're just rolling with the puns today.
Yeah. Sorry, folks. I've been up since 5 o'clock this morning. So,
Yep, I've been up
we.
pretty early too. All right,
Nice.
so on to the next one. Well, I guess on to me, I guess is how this would
Yeah.
roll. Um, so
You
since
are
I'm
the next one.
since I'm still relatively new to this space, the I think one thing, honestly, learning from failures, I think just this is randomly going to plug this in is I also need to not be, and this is just for me moving forward, is I need to not be so, I guess, uptight with myself or also just like so blaming myself for not being where I'm at. Because yeah,
Yep.
truthfully, like in some respects, I could be somewhere. I could be doing something off better if I had a better mindset. But I think what really holds a lot of people back is just like, well, I'll never get there, and also just that because I haven't seen success in these couple months, that I'm not going to get anywhere. And I think that's like such an L move, personally, especially if you're actually really if this is like something you're dead set on, you can't be worried about like the now. You got to just keep going until it goes off. But I guess a failure per se, not to like piggyback off of Paul or anything, but I was also just over, and I guess that's really with anybody. You see like these kids or people like Iman Godzi or wherever, where they're like 20 years old and they're like
Yeah.
millionaires, and you're like, dude, like how hard can it be, right? You know, and so
Yeah.
you just kind of like, I don't know, just half put your back into it, like, I'll just it'll end up working for me, right? Like I'm in the right mentality, and
I
that's
think I think that's called half-assing it.
yeah, and it's just it being in that mentality is not a smart move because while that is true to be be gracious with yourself and be enthusiastic and stay consistent, you also that was probably my biggest failure is like I was probably thinking of like where I'd be today, and I was like, man, like on on February 14th of Happy Valentine's Day, by the way, February 14th,
Hey.
in 2024, I will be uh, $250,000 saved by then. Not to say that's what I was thinking, but like similarly, I was thinking like
Yeah.
that's where I would be at, and I really have no idea how hard it is to really get this stuff off the ground. And
Hmm.
there's a reason people like Iman Godsi, or even people that everyone knows like Mr. Beast and stuff, uploaded videos for years before they ever made it big.
Yeah.
And it's because a lot of people are like, well, since they're young, that means they're new to the space, right? But no, Mr. Beast, for example, I think he's a huge genius when it comes to entrepreneurship and YouTube and stuff like that. I mean, he's been doing this for longer than most adults have been doing YouTube or
Yeah.
businesses somehow. He was just so young and no one knew him at the time.
He and his friends literally started like they took. I think I heard him say at one point like a whole year or something like that, and they literally did nothing but study the YouTube platform for 8 to 10 hours a day.
Yeah, they
That
would.
was that was that was it. That was all they did.
Yeah, actual masterminds there. He's
Which obviously now it's paid off.
yeah, by far. I mean, he's valued at over a billion
Over a
dollars,
billion dollars. Yeah.
and it's it's something. I also just randomly plug in another quote that he says is he said, I just thought it was inspirational and thought I should throw it in here, was he said, everybody thinks you're crazy until you become successful. They're all like,
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, good for you, good for trying, but what is with that guy? He's crazy, thinking this is gonna work. But then once you actually like blow up, then you're like, oh, he's not so crazy. This guy's a genius. It's just like no one. What he said is no one really respects the ambition at the beginning, which
Yeah.
is an honest truth. With many people that I've talked to about this, it's like, they give a little lighthearted, like, yeah, good for you. Starting down the journey like everyone else, right? Stuff like that. But it's not until you really come out and prove yourself that, or like, until you make it big, that everyone's like, oh, and that shouldn't be disheartening anyway. That should be kind of motivating. Um,
Yep.
that you know that you can do this, and not that you can just prove everyone wrong, but that you can also prove to the people who are feeling uninspired in the moment, right? That you can prove
Yeah.
that they can actually get out of somewhere. So, that was just a failure, I guess I would say. Is I was overambitious, but I was also I was overhyped with thinking the amount of money I would be at right now. But I also was and still am sometimes far too hard on myself than I should be, for being so early into this game. So, alrighty, on to the next point. I guess we did discuss, because we have like a little like basic notes pad here. We're not like just going completely off the whim. I mean, maybe we will one
Yeah.
day, but um,
We'll just literally be like, "What are we recording a podcast episode about?" I don't know. Let's go.
yeah. I mean, we did discuss the lessons we learned from that, and I guess how it kind of
Yeah.
does our future decisions. Like you said, like you're gonna price higher, and
Yeah.
and that you're gonna know what you're capable of before you go into something full swing,
Mm-hmm.
and that I'm not gonna be so over ambitious, thinking like, oh well, zippity doo dah, I'm gonna be a multi-million-dollar in 5 months, and I have no track record to prove anything.
Yeah. Exactly. That ain't gonna work.
Yeah, unless I literally got, unless I literally won the lottery. That's like I don't know. I don't know how else you could pull that off. I mean, you probably invested in like something like flea coin or something, like something stupid, and it just takes off.
Boy.
It was just, it was just what came off the top of my dome piece here.
Flea coin. I like that.
Flea coin is pretty gas. That's actually wild. We covered all three of the points already, and it's been
Like 10 minutes.
almost 20
15
minutes.
minutes. 20 minutes. Oh.
So
Well, my my idea of time sucks. I think I think one of the things with this whole thing, and this is true honestly for both you and I. Like, yes, this is the beginning of year 6, but because I've moved to a new place and all that sort of stuff, it's basically a fresh start. Like, this might as well be the beginning of year 1. Um, except I've learned a lot, which is nice. But like the things that I've learned over the last 5 years has been um, really kind of influential in the decisions I'm making now. Like, for example, I'm at a position where it's pretty much a fresh start with what my business is. And having learned in the last 5 years the kind of business that I want to have, um, the like, doing client photo and video work, like for like, local businesses and stuff like that. That's been the focus of my business for a very long time, and I've learned over the last 5 years that I don't want to be doing that like anymore. Like I will still take a gig if it comes up, but I'll be pricing a lot higher for those so that when they do come up and I have to spend time on that, it makes it worth it. But in terms of the day-to-day business, like what it is I actually want to be doing, I I've been a professional photographer for 6 years, and so I know the skill set through and through. And so my business now is shifting more in the direction of education, um, because I want to help people. Like that's kind of my goal, is providing value to people that is not just like, oh, I'll make a video for you and it can grow your business, but then they don't use it right.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't SEO it properly or anything like that. So I start including information to, here's how to do this, or like, okay, I'll shoot a set of photos for you that can promote a new product or service, but then they don't like do anything with those or do necessarily the right things with those either. Which it's kind of like, I'm providing you a service and you're paying for the service, but then you take the thing that I make you and you don't do the correct thing with it, even though I've literally provided everything that you need spelled out to do the right thing with it, and you still don't. Well, that's frustrating, which then leads to subpar results for them, which is why I don't end up necessarily with more business, even though I'm literally going, hey, I'm going to make this. This is what it's going to do if we do these things with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then that doesn't happen. Um, and so I'm moving more in the direction of education. Like I'm currently working on an ebook right now that is uh, pretty much everything I know about photography, just jammed into an ebook. Um, and I'm going to be doing that and running some live events via Eventbrite for traffic generation, and then doing a private group on Facebook that people can pay to join, where it's just like myself and some other photographers uh, in this group, in order to like help people grow and learn as photographers and answer questions and all that kind of stuff. Like maybe that'll eventually turn into a course, but um, my my business outlook has taken a dramatic shift, where instead of it being like, I will help your business grow, it's more turned into, oh, I'll help you grow by teaching you this skill set,
Mm-hmm.
which you can either go and use to make money, or maybe it's just a creative outlet for you yourself, or it's a something that you use to just hang on to memories of your family for years and years. Like whatever it is you do with it, I want to help you in this endeavor by teaching you everything I know.
Yep.
and providing that kind of value. And honestly, I feel way better about that. On the practical end of things, because it's location independent.
Yeah.
Like it's location independent. There's no cap or ceiling on the amount of money that I can earn.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
And
not
it's
stuck.
super scalable too.
Yeah, it's super super scalable. But take all of that out. Like completely remove all of the like practical like oh it's super scalable and location independent. Like forget all of that for a second. When it all boils down, I would much rather be doing that. Like actually teaching people something and helping people. Even if I never make like even if I only ever make enough money to live comfortably and travel comfortably, maybe I only make I only ever make like $100,000 a year or $80,000 a year or $70,000 a year, whatever. Maybe I only ever make that. But even if I only ever make that, but doing this, that's fine. Now, can I scale the heck out of it? Yeah. Am I planning on doing that? Eventually, yeah. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, what tangible value can I provide people that not only can change their life but also fills me up?
Yeah.
Like is fulfilling to me, and
That matters a lot.
that really does matter a lot, folks. Like if you're looking at starting a business, yes, you can start a business in something that you don't care about and make a lot of money, but if you start a business doing something that you really really do care about, you'll stick with it way longer, and in the end, most likely be much more successful.
Yep.
So, number one mistake I've probably made, getting my business started in a direction that I didn't actually care about.
Yep. Matt Gray says it really well. He made it's like a short form video, but he was talking about like he makes this big diagram of conflicting because a lot of people have conflicting ideas. Do I do something I want to do, or do I do something that I don't want to do, but it makes a lot of money? Um, and he kind of boils it down into something that you can actually make that's tangible as far as a business idea, and that will encapsulate all those. Um, if I
Is
could
it that
find it,
one that's like a? Is it that one that's like the Venn diagram?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's super, super useful stuff. But yeah, it's I think that's a huge, huge pointing factor, and I think what a lot of people like, including Alex Ramosi, anybody else that's really big, they all talk about like developing your skill set, and that's something I didn't really want to hear. I was like, well, give me the money first, I want the money first, or I want the
You
time
can't, you
freedom
can't get
first.
you can't get to the money or the time freedom without the skill set.
Yeah, and so a lot of people think like want their 20s to be building about money, but you don't have that luxury unless you start when you're like 10 or 15. Um,
Facts.
so you need to build your skills first, and then the money will come later. And I think that's
Yep.
and I think that's the way it ought to be because um, if you're in your 20s like us, or younger, or maybe just a hair older, you probably, maybe not true, but most likely about 50% of you guys probably don't have kids or a big family to take care of.
Yeah.
And that's the perfect time where you should be taking bigger risks on your finances to grow your skills if this is something you really want to do, because you don't have people depending on you. And
Yeah.
that's a huge thing you have to like kind of wrap your head around. Is that's why some parents actually never do go out and build a business that they want to, is because they're stuck taking care of you, or they were stuck taking care of you. And so if you're gonna do it, you
Nothing
better,
against you, folks.
yeah. So nothing against you, but that's just the way it is.
Yep.
And you got to be grateful for that. But with moving forward, if you want to change that, you got to start now. You don't have the luxury or the time to wait, or kind of like I'll work this job, and this job, and I'll just think about this. And then once life starts happening, and you get a girlfriend, you get married, and you have kids, and
And then all of a sudden you're 30 years down the road and you never did the thing you really wanted to do.
yeah. So seize the moment. I think if there's going to be any failures, and truthfully, with learning from these failures, I need to clarify that as much as like big L's or setbacks this may have been for me and Paul, or ones that we're facing later down the road, I don't think it's failing unless you quit. Like, truthfully, I don't think it's failing unless you quit, and that's a mentality you need to have moving forward, and that we need to keep. Like, me and Paul also need to be holding ourselves accountable. Is like, you can't just like throw a penny at something and hope it turns into $1 million. You gotta, you gotta keep going. It's gonna get hard. The road's gonna get bumpy, but you gotta just keep moving forward. Because you don't really fail unless you quit. Truthfully, that's how I believe it should be. I truthfully believe that, because there's a lot of people who's all like, it's genetics. Genetics is what sets you apart from everyone else. The people who are billionaires are just lucky. They were just born with the brains to do that. It's like, no, they all had slip-ups and fails and miserable living conditions. Some of them had horrible families or instances where it would never be possible for them to succeed. But just because they did not give up, they didn't fail, and that's where they're at now. And if people like David Goggins or whoever, what have you, is doing that, is doing that, then why can't you, who is not saying that you are, maybe you're not, but if you're born in the middle class or in America, which some people don't have that luxury, and they're born in the middle of Africa or Iraq or something, there's no excuse for you not to be where you want to be. And the only reason that isn't happening is because you're not taking action, I believe. And so that's to keep yourself from looking in the mirror 30 years down the road and not doing what you really wanted to, and you're living a life that you're not really happy with or content with. Seize the moment now and keep going. So
something to think about. The majority of millionaires are dumber than you. They just the majority of millionaires are dumber than you. They just put in the work.
That's what
that's the difference.
I used to watch him a lot. Alex Becker, he's more of like a crypto guy on YouTube, but
oh yeah,
he's still a really big billionaire. Well, not a billionaire, but he's worth a lot of money and
multi-millionaire.
Yeah, he's in the, what is that, 8 figures, definitely 8 figures, probably 9. And
9 figures is $1 billion. So.
9 figures is 100 million.
Or 100, or you're right, 100 million. Okay.
But essentially, he talks about like, well, what he says it's a big joke because once you're in that 9-figure category, some other people who are in the 9 figures or more. And he's like, yeah, rich people, they just get dumber. He's like, that's what he said. He's like, he's so not convinced that they're any smarter than the average human being. It's literally just like dumbing down. It's almost essentially dumbing down your life. Like, stop giving yourself so many different avenues of focus and just primarily focus on one.
Yeah.
Like, the kid you're calling dumb because he just, I don't know, does nothing but plays band instruments all day. You're like, this kid's stupid. He's going to be actually really good at band, but he's no smarter than you. It's just because he's not splitting his energy and focus into a billion different things. He's focusing down on one. And truthfully, you're going to learn by executing and failing and getting back up and trying again over and over and over again. And that's just the way it is. So, yeah. Well, with this episode, it's pretty short. We just barely squeezed fitting this into our schedule. With the this might be published a little bit later in the day than I would hope, but I'm hoping I can get it out on time. We want to thank you guys for your patience and support with listening to this, and we're just trying to favor in the era of consistency. This may not be our best episode, not our most put together. I mean, I'm literally in pajama clothes right now. And
I mean, hey, at least it gets posted the same day. Who cares if it's a few hours late?
Yeah, and so
I just posted a YouTube video like 2.5 weeks late. So I think you're fine.
Yeah. So thank you guys for listening in on the Growth Genesis podcast. Your hosts Dan and Paul. we're very glad to keep doing this, and stay resilient, keep going, and seize the moment while you can.
Yep.
All
Take
right.
care, folks.
Take care.